Okay, so in the field of historical studies, an example of how do I know what I know, this plays a big role in historical studies because we can't just look at a textbook and say, oh, that's the fact about history. No, that's somebody's interpretation. That's an angle of whoever wrote the textbook. So students will be looking at how do I know what I know based on the bias of this text, because they will be taught that every single text is biased, in at least to some degree. So, and how can I apply my knowledge? In historical studies, students will reflect on, for example, how can I use the lessons in history to and apply to what's going on in today's world? How does current events today connect to what happened in the past? And what are the historical roots? And how can I use knowledge of those historical roots in order to come up with a more long-term solution? In science, how do I know what I know is going to work similar to math. Students won't be asked to just accept a law of physics or a law of chemistry. They'll actually figure it out for themselves. And for how can I apply my knowledge, just like social studies, students are dying to actually use the field to make change in their communities, their nations, and in the world. So the possibilities are endless. You know, green technology, advancements in medicine. So many students, I asked my students when I taught in Malawi, what do you want to be when you grow up? I don't know how many students said, I want to become a scientist so I can find the cure for AIDS. Most of these children have family members who have passed from AIDS. So those are just a couple of examples of endless possibilities of applying knowledge of science to changing the world. For technology and engineering, green tech is also one. Renewable energy, that's how we can apply our knowledge. And for how do I know what I know? You know, how do you define green? How do you define sustainable? What are the criteria? People throw the words around every day, but do we have a clear definition for, you know, what is a green power source? What is a green, you know, building? And in the different language fields, how do I know what I know? This comes into play a lot because the way we use language affects the way that we gain knowledge. How can I apply my knowledge? You know, looking at novels that have changed the world, fiction and nonfiction books that have changed the world, how can I write a book that will cause somebody to change the way they think? That's how these questions would be applied. Just some examples of how these questions would apply throughout the curriculum. And again, students would be making these connections on their own. And I think this is really the beauty and the uniqueness of the Pangea schools, what the Pangea schools curriculum will be.